You're already creative. You just don't recognize the system you're running every single day. If you don't paint, write music, or do anything obviously artistic, it's easy to assume that creativity just isn't part of who you are. Yet you're solving complex problems, making high-stakes decisions every single day and still feel uncreative. After this video, you'll see creativity not as a talent, but as a precise and diagnosable system of input, processing, and output. You'll know exactly where it breaks and how to fix it, without pressure or performative hustle. You're already using the system, you're just not seeing it yet. So let's take a closer look. Creativity is usually reduced to a narrow picture. We think of art, music, painting, crafting, knitting, you name it. And we associate endless possibilities in a blank page with total freedom with it. So let's picture this and let me introduce you to Alex. Alex is a songwriter and he really doesn't know where to start. On the other hand, let's meet Sophia. Sophia is a strategy lead. There is a clear goal involved, she has heavy constraints, and she has a tight deadline to come up with a new business strategy for the operations team. And Sophia delivers results, but it never feels creative to her, so her work feels empty. So you end up in this weird place where creativity either feels absent or completely overwhelming. Either you're staring at a blank page with endless possibilities like Alex, or you're solving complex problems and still feel like none of it counts, like Sophia. But here's the part most people miss. Those two completely different experiences are actually running on the same mechanism. They both create something genuinely new, they both make decisions, and they both transform any input into an output. The difference is just surface level. You're already creative, you're just mislabeling it. The system behind creativity is simple. It's just input, processing, and output. And you find it everywhere. It's in Alex's songwriting, Sophia's business strategy, designing an AV integration, and even how you communicate in a leadership meeting. So in order to either solve the problem of the blank page or make you feel a little more creative, let's flip the question of am I creative to where exactly in the system am I? Because creativity isn't a trait. It's a system you can diagnose and improve. And once you start treating creativity as a system, not as something vague or talent-based, something quietly powerful happens. You stop blaming yourself and you start asking a much more precise question. Where did the system actually break? Let's walk through the stages using Alex's song and Sophia's business strategy as our examples. Input is literally everything you take in. It goes from inspiration to knowledge to your own experiences. And this concludes in what makes you feel inspired. So let's look at what could go wrong at this stage. Let's take Alex first. He is probably listening to a lot of music, but he is really overwhelmed with the endless possibilities he has at this point. And so he ends up not producing any song. Sophia, on the other hand, produces real output. She dives straight into the research, doing it quick and focuses on what she thinks is needed, but she doesn't take the time to actually define the underlying problem. This makes her feel overwhelmed and as if she has only generic ideas. What would help both of them is to write one sentence in a specific way that determines the goal first. So that sentence is, I want to create, solve, specific result for specific person or situation. So the sentence could look like this for Alex. I want to create a song that captures the exact feeling of quiet regret for listeners who've just ended a long relationship. And for Sophia, it could look something like this. The strategy needs to help cut downtime for the operations team by 30% while staying under budget. Then they could ask themselves, what are the 2 to 3 gaps they are trying to fill right now? And only the third step is actually to gather input, to look for inspiration. So one way to do that is to mix different kinds and to keep one deep, one fresh, and one unexpected. So his 3 sources would be his knowledge around songwriting techniques. Then, as for the fresh resource, this could be his own experiences. And the unexpected could be that he just recently went to a theme park and looked at the roller coaster design. So the way they build anticipation and drops and maybe stop halfway up before it accelerates. And this makes him pick the mood and the theme first before he even starts writing. So the 3 sources she uses are also her knowledge and experiences as the deep foundation. And the second fresh one might be a LinkedIn article she read recently around authentic leadership and how to put the team first. And the third one, the unexpected one, could be a YouTube video she just saw around how emergency room triage works. So both Alex and Sophia now have a clear goal of what they want to create, and also 3 sources they can creatively combine, because if the input is unclear or scattered, everything after it becomes noise. But even if you have the right input, things can still fall apart, because creativity doesn't happen in what you take in, it happens in what you do with it. Processing is the transformation stage, where your thinking style becomes your unfair advantage. So when we follow Alex and Sophia along, they might struggle with this now. Alex repeats the same chord progression he's heard everywhere. And Sophia copies industry bass lines instead of tailoring something on her own. And also this is the point where the emotional friction comes in. Think of a fish that tries to explain what water is. That's not really possible, right? Because the fish is surrounded by the water all the time. It doesn't really see the value and also the uniqueness of that water. And the same is with your own thinking. And to find your water and what makes your thinking unique is to ask this question. Where am I surprised others are not good at? So Alex might be surprised that not many people are able to pick up the guitar and just jam a few chords. So he might realize that this is exactly his unfair advantage. And Sophia might realize that she's able to spot patterns effortlessly. So now she's able to build a scalable solution because she's not just solving the symptoms, but instead found the root cause and solved that instead. So because you're unique, there's 2 ways to approach the creative challenge. One is a structured way and the second one is an exploratory way. The structured way might be Sophia's preference. It's where she maps out everything she needs, find a clear goal and then work backwards to achieve that. And the exploratory is what Alex might prefer. It's where he sits down with his guitar, really start messy but trust the process. If Alex or Sophia are still stuck, one way to force transformation is to remove the obvious solution. And for Alex, this could look like that it removed the idea of the song being entirely sad and slow. And instead he might come up with the idea to combine a minor key piano loop with a soft spoken bridge. And the first idea that might have come to mind for Sophia would have been just do more ads. But now that she takes away this first idea, she could combine the internal downtime data with the system's thinking paper on feedback loops and come up with a self-reinforcing customer community model. So you don't lack creativity, you just haven't found a way to make your own thinking clearly visible. So we noticed that this is usually the phase where doubt hits hardest. Not because creativity is missing, but because what makes your thinking valuable is still invisible. So you overthink or you stop. And that leads to the stage that feels most visible and most frustrating. Output is simply the result of the system, the song, the strategy deck, the decision or the fix. And the misconception we usually have around creative output is that it must be unique or expressive or must show your personality. But here's the reality. Alex's song is creative. And Sophia's clear high-impact strategy deck is equally creative. Problem solving is creative. Clarity is creative. And insight is creative. So as output is the results of the steps before, we could end up with either no output or a delayed output or a very shallow output that doesn't feel unique. Step away from that project for 24 hours, but after the 24 hours are over, it's time to get into the engineer's mode and to analyze. And this is never about your own worth. And when nothing comes out or what comes out feels flat, it's easy to assume that the whole process failed. But this is exactly where most people misread what output actually is. Output always gives you clean, diagnosable data. It tells you what worked and what didn't, and by analyzing it, you find exactly where the system broke. So always keep in mind that it's not failure, it's feedback. So the 4 questions I'd like to ask myself to analyze my creative work are those. Did I create new value? Where did I transform or copy? What felt easiest or hardest? And what changes for version 2? And around these 4 questions, you could actually build a tracker. And once you stop treating output as judgment and instead treat it as information, something important shifts. You stop reacting emotionally and start adjusting the system with clarity. So the system can break at input processing or output stage, but the most valuable step to fix it is at the input stage. And that's why analyzing the output is so important, because it immediately feeds back to the input. Fixing in processing stage also sometimes work very well, but it's not scalable. So the next time you have a different problem or a different creative project, you need a different solution. And the output fix is usually only helpful to get any output and therefore to overcome the emotional blockers you might have. So don't push harder, adjust earlier. And once you understood the system of input, processing and output, you really can't unsee it. It's basically everywhere. It's in communication, cooking, daily decisions, or in team leadership. And with every system, it's important where it's embedded, because you feel more creative when your unique processing and thinking is valued by people around you. And you feel uncreative when it's invisible, even if you're producing results. So creativity isn't missing, it's just unnoticed. And once you see this clearly, it's very hard to go back to the old story that creativity is something that you either have or don't. If you've ever felt like you're not creative, or like your ideas don't fully translate into something meaningful, it's probably not a lack of creativity. It's a system you're just not fully seeing. Now you have the map, and you can start working with it instead of against it. This is exactly what Connectively is about. Breaking down thinking, systems, and decision-makings into clear frameworks. I have another video coming out soon which gives you the 7 exact techniques to apply to your daily creativity workflow so that you have a simple, structured routine. And if you want more structured thinking like this, subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.